McLaren has already made 2 strikes at the start of this season, and while they continue to look strong, some teams are starting to play desperately. Welcome then to the 3rd round of the Formula 1 World Championship, the Japanese Grand Prix. This is one of my favorite parts of the year, as it's time to race on what I believe is the best damn circuit on the planet. The Japanese beauty, located in Mie Prefecture, called Suzuka, which is the beautiful lady with gorgeous curves on the official Formula 1 calendar. This sublime layout will continue the story from a few weeks ago. McLaren remains strong as the battle between Piastri and Norris intensifies, while other teams hunt them down, some playing desperately. It can give us a great race like the old times, with much still to be decided and everyone needing to react. If they don't want to let McLaren go solo in the drivers' and constructors' tables. If you put together a delightful circuit, a battle that is just beginning, and 20 fast drivers, all that remains is to hope that this masterpiece gives us a real race. Let's start the preview of the Formula 1 Japanese Grand Prix 2025 like this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I think I must have already bored you with the love and fanaticism I have for the Suzuka circuit, and I regret to inform you that this is not going to stop. So stand up to welcome the most challenging beauty of the Formula 1 World Championship. The Honda-owned circuit, which will host the 3rd round of the World Championship, where the teams are desperately hunting a McLaren that continues to be very solid and quite strong. So, for us, it's time to start with this preview, doing it precisely with the explanation of this beauty of a track. So ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the circuit section to better understand this mythical temple of sports car racing. Mie Prefecture, Japan. Its circuit is the Suzuki International Circuit, built in 1962. 5.8 kilometers of travel, 53 laps, 18 curves, 1 drag reduction system activation zone, and 2 potential zones to make any overtaking maneuver. Characterized by being a track of fast curves, dizzying, and with a completely beastly and wild route. The first sector is a combination of speed straight and fast links that test the grip and stability of the car. But before entering these curves, there is the only drag reduction system zone that this track has. On the main straight, where just before the finish line, the drivers activate the drag reduction system. For the only time on this circuit, which extends all the way down this main straight to the braking point of turn 1. After this straight and passing 1 and 2, come the linked turns of this circuit. Ridiculously fast from left to right, requiring incredible aerodynamic support and a precise line to turn at the highest possible speed until you get through this difficult part. Being by far the most challenging curves of this first sector, in addition to being key to mastering this first part of the Japanese circuit. In the second sector, the revolutions do not decrease. It's another quite technical area, with a combination mostly of fast curves and the occasional slow curve. In this test, cars are challenged in various areas, including fast curves like the demanding 1 and 2, as well as strong braking and traction, like the entry and exit of the hairpin and aerodynamic support and stability in the famous spoon curve. The sector is complex but maintains the pace seen in the first part of the track, and it keeps you turning quickly and in some cases braking hard. It doesn't have too long straights, so essentially it's very similar to the first sector, continuing thus with the journey of this roller coaster of a circuit. The third sector is by far faster and less technical than the past one, as here the pilots face the descent. That leads you to cross with full throttle, the famous 130R curve, one of the most stunning turns in the calendar. Additionally, apply the brakes more forcefully than usual at the entrance of the Casio Triangle chicane on this track. Being a sector where the car's speed, traction and brakes are rigorously tested, where it is very important, in this last curve, in particular, to have a clean exit to traction and get out as quickly as possible to the main straight. Especially if any driver is hunting down a rival on the track. The Suzuka circuit is a high-speed challenge, not so much for the straights but because most of the curves on this circuit are very fast. Probably some of the fastest on the calendar. It's a track that punishes cars with quick turns and leaves little room for rest and little margin for error. Where among its beautiful curves, its elevation changes, and its escape routes, we find a circuit like few others on the calendar. So, in summary, in the first sector, the key element is the aerodynamic support, mainly focused on the front part of it. In the second, agility of the single-seater, and the third, speed, traction, and braking to face the challenging curve of the Casio triangle. As other data to take into account, this circuit is highly treacherous, and in many areas the walls are very close to the track or the dirt runoffs can punish mistakes. And since the invention of the safety car in 1994, to date in Suzuka, this device has come out up to 15 times. Which gives us a probability of up to 55% that the safety car will appear this year, being an average probability that it happens. Having as the most dangerous and challenging point of this circuit, the Denier 2 curve. A tight right turn, where the high speed at which this curve is reached means that if you brake too late or don't race well, you go long through the escape route. And as the wall is very close, there is the possibility of hitting it and completely destroying the car. Being not only the most difficult curves of this circuit, but also the most dangerous curve that this particular layout has. Elements such as brakes and traction are not as punished on this circuit, as you only brake very hard on turn number 3, making it an element not so worn out on this track. And traction is also not vital, finding its relevance on this track at the midpoint. The cars will indeed require a medium-high aerodynamic load, due to the fast curves of this circuit and the need to take them very quickly, as this track is mostly composed of this type of curves. The great weakness of this circuit is that being so narrow and with so few straights, it makes overtaking extremely complicated, especially if there is not a notable difference in tire wear. Despite that, there are two crucial points for overtaking. The first, clearly, is turn 1 with the drag reduction system and heavy braking. To overtake, it is necessary to come out well traction from the last turn and know how to suction the rival all the way down the main straight. Although the beauty of turn number 1 is that you can overtake both on the inside or the outside, but as in the use of the drag reduction system, the straight is not very long, it does not make overtaking maneuvers easy at all. The second zone is at the braking of turn 16. Thanks to all that speed zone, the cars can draft to try to have an overtaking opportunity at the entrance of the turn. The Casio triangle demands bravery with the brakes to capture the turns inside, no matter what. So the difficulty to make overtakes, we could place it on a scale from 1 to 5, as 3.5. It's very complicated to make overtakes, but it's not impossible. In the Suzuka pit lane, you drive at 80 km per hour, being one of fast transit. The entrance does not require a sudden deviation and is transited with everything, stopping at boxes in approximately 20–23 seconds, being a fast transit pit lane whose exit and entrance do not require strange deviations. The level of tire wear on this circuit is quite high. The track eagerly punishes the rubber, as the asphalt is very abrasive and the lateral loads and stress to which the tire is subjected is extremely high. So in general terms, we should see a race with 2 stops and with a priority of using the hard tire for this race. And Pirelli will bring its hardest range of tires this weekend, the 101, 102 and 103 tires, to face the extremely tough wear of the Japanese circuit. Suzuka was conceived as a test track, and as such, it demands the cars in the most demanding conditions. The monstrous fast curves, the high level of tire wear, and the high concentration needed on this circuit make it one of the most complicated on the calendar. Because it is a beautiful track, from head to toe, but each sector is a very high-level challenge, where the cars that shine in fast curve and manage degradation better will be the ones that find in Suzuka a huge opportunity to shine. McLaren extends its lead in both drivers' and constructors' standings after securing a 1-2 finish in China, presenting us now in Japan a race where Norris and Piastri will raise the intensity in their fight for the title, with a whole cavalry behind that will do anything to prevent them from escaping in the tables, given the few opportunities that may exist later, to turn around the current situation that the different teams are experiencing. And in that scenario, wait and prepare for anything, and in this situation, it's time to see the one-by-one of teams and drivers for this third date of the Formula 1 World Championship. 2 out of 2 for the Papaya team, which continues to scare with its prodigious pace. And, most importantly, how much they can keep increasing their lead in future races. Before the first updates of the year and the technical regulations that will fall at the Spanish Grand Prix, In China, it was confirmed that the great strength of this car is related to the tires and how quickly they are able to heat them up. But also that the car is very difficult to drive, and depending on the circuit, the car may perform better or worse. And it seems that the great weakness of the MCL39 are the strong brakes and slow curves. The problem becomes more pronounced when you have to push the car to the limit, as is the case in qualifying laps and for added difficulty. That problem doesn't seem to be going to be solved quickly. This handling problem that the MCL39 has become bigger in the Chinese Grand Prix, with the sprint format having less time to set up the cars. Besides being degrading, this circuit can be more forgiving of the car's weaknesses. So McLaren has everything on its side to win again this weekend and continue extending the difference in both tables of drivers and constructors. However, China implemented a new technical regulation against the mini drag reduction system. And while no one at McLaren has admitted it affected them, some media report that Woking was among those 4 or 5 teams affected. And it was even more suspicious that it was in the fastest sector of the China circuit. On the long straight, they didn't show much more speed compared to their rivals, so there is a possibility that this situation may have been true. And we'll have to see how this car behaves on the faster circuits we have later in the calendar. Especially how much it ends up affecting them, but still, regardless of this, they run as the big favorites to win this weekend at the Japan Grand Prix. Mercedes showed in the last race many encouraging data that confirmed that the W16 is a much better car than all those that have preceded the German brand. In this era of ground effect, it was in control of degradation and a much more predictable car, but whose current weaknesses are low speed curves and lack of aerodynamic load at the rear of the car. The team's foundation is quite promising, and there is some common thought that with a good development race in the single-seater, Mercedes might be able to beat McLaren regularly later in the season. The W16's strengths and weaknesses suggest Suzuka might be a track where they return as the second force, as it doesn't play to their advantages. The slow corners and a good part of the corners of this circuit require more aerodynamic load on the front. Personally, I don't expect them to excel in fast corners, but this circuit should play to their strengths. If the data confirms what we saw in this year's first races, so Mercedes can reaffirm its position in this competition, where, at least for now, the feelings are quite positive. Red Bull is in a chaotic situation. First, because the car is still very difficult to handle, and second, because the situation does not seem to be changing quickly. After Liam Lawson's disastrous debut at Red Bull, they have decided to replace him, and now Yuki Tsunoda will be Verstappen's partner from this competition. The problem is that the car remains what it is very difficult to handle for someone who does not have a driving style similar to Max Verstappen's. Tsunoda has claimed to have a similar style, so it remains to be seen if he can handle the car. And he confirms that the only way to make it work is with an oversteering style. There are rumors that a significant upgrade package is being readied for Imola, which could be this team's final attempt to improve their performance, to manage to turn around the difficult situation they currently find themselves in. But for now, it seems they will have to suffer in the 3 races of this triple, although rain is expected for Sunday. And that could particularly help Verstappen to get a great result this weekend. So all we have left to see is how Tsunoda's change works, who is precisely racing at home this weekend and wants to get a great result. But seeing what we've seen, it looks complicated for the little keychain to have an easy task to achieve that podium he's aiming for. Williams is the team that has shown the most solid in these first races of the mid-table group, since their car seems competitive, and they have been quite accurate with the strategies in the first Grand Prix of the year. However, Carlos Sainz has not shown the same strength seen in the preseason, and it was rumored that Albon had different chassis, Albon an updated version, and Carlos a rebuilt version of it. Has James Bowles categorically denied this already? He mentioned both having the same version of the single-seater, but also that Sainz is still in that adaptation process to be able to get the most out of his potential in this car. They are expected to fight for points again in this Grand Prix. However, we'll need to see if Carlos can better adapt to his single-seater. And between him and Albon, they can continue with the double harvest in a Grand Prix that looks pretty good for them. Things at Ferrari continue to be terrible, but nothing can be worse than a double disqualification, so this Grand Prix should be their fresh start, 2.0. The thing is that their big problem is that their car is very difficult to understand, and past competitions have only shown how limited the San Francisco 25 currently is. Ferrari believes it has immense potential, but they haven't found the key to unlocking it and don't expect to solve it soon. Expectations for Ferrari in Japan remain uncertain. Their car is very sensitive to changes in track conditions, so in one session they can be very strong and completely disappear in the other. So their real position is hard to determine. But the team is expected to receive some updates in the upcoming Grand Prix that will help unlock all that potential that is hidden in the San Francisco 25. But what can happen in Japan does not look positive at all for the prancing horse team. After the Australian race, Haas's result in China was a complete surprise and unexpected, even for their own team. But Haas must prove their pace again at the Japanese Grand Prix before claiming they are not a backmarker team. It is said that they excelled in China because the new asphalt allowed them to ride closer to the ground, maximizing their single-seater's performance. So Haas doesn't exactly know what to expect for this competition, and probably a good result will completely depend on the condition of the track. So Haas is another mystery team that we really don't know what to expect from during this race weekend. Aston Martin's situation proved more promising than initially perceived during the preseason. And it seems that indeed they are in the group of teams fighting to lead the mid-table. Alonso admitted that they lag behind Williams and Red Bull in performance, making scoring points a challenge. Race yes, and race also, until the updates that Aston Martin is eagerly waiting for arrive to start evolving the pace of the single-seater. So for now, a fairly complicated fight for points is expected on the Japanese soil for this particular team. But they cannot be completely ruled out, especially if Sunday's race is under changing conditions. Geek Sauber's situation remains unchanged from recent races, with their car still among the slowest on the grid. However, in qualifying, their car seems to be much more solid and strong than what they show in race pace. However, Sauber is optimistic for this competition. They appear stronger on normal race weekends without the sprint format. This enables them to improve their setup, allowing them to set a pace and put up more of a fight. But even so, the points look very complicated under normal conditions for the green team, which will transform into Audi next season. Many in the paddock believe the Racing Bulls have the fastest car among the mid-table teams. But in the strategic disasters they have had, they have turned a potential point fighter into zero. The first two races of the season have them back at the bottom of the table. This weekend, they can potentially fight to lead the mid-table again, but they will face a complex situation. Liam Lawson has been demoted to Racing Bulls after two poor races with Red Bull, and the team will have to deal with getting him back in shape to perform. At least similar to his Noda, who in particular was doing a great job. It's not going to be easy, because now Liam will have to relearn how to use the car and try to bring out his best version again. To shake off what just happened, the move may be beneficial for the driver to regain confidence and prove his worth in the car. But the only thing that is certain at this point is that this team has the obligation to add and make up for the damage they caused in the first races of the season. Because the car is competitive, and it should have already scored many points, leading the mid-table. Alpine admitted in China that the new rear-wing flexibility rules impacted their performance, resulting in a disappointing showing for the team. Suddenly becoming a backmarker car and severely affected by this regulation, it seems difficult that they can make up for such a deficit from one race to another, as no major updates are expected. So we'll have to see if the French team can do something, but at least for now, the situation doesn't look good for this team. The weather report has some surprises that could make for a very interesting Grand Prix this weekend. Because at the time we recorded this video, even though there is no threat of rain for Friday or Saturday, Sunday changes completely, as there is a threat of up to 70% chance of rain for the race, and with that giving us the opportunity to experience a very changing Grand Prix. 100 temperatures between 17 degrees, 120 degrees, 100 are expected during the 3-day Japanese Grand Prix. The forecast for that weekend in Japan may change, especially given its geographical position, but this is the current outlook. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for the gift of rain that could bring life to a hectic and chaotic Grand Prix on the beautiful Suzuka circuit. To conclude this preview, here's the historical data Suzuka has for us and the Japanese Grand Prix, so you can take away some trivia this weekend and a bit more knowledge of this Japanese competition. The Japanese Grand Prix was born in 1976. Interestingly, it was the Fuji circuit, not this one, that debuted and brought this competition to life in 1976 and 1977. After a 10-year hiatus of Formula One visiting Japan, they moved the venue in 1987, precisely to the Suzuka circuit, which was created and conceived as a test track for the Honda brand. but in the end it ended up hosting the Grand Prix that it has hosted since that date from 1987 until now. Although not uninterruptedly, Japan has only had 2 venues for its Grand Prix in the official and scoring calendars of Formula 1. In 1977, 78, 2007 and 2008, the Fuji circuit was the host of this event. From 1987 to 2025, except for 2007, 2008, 2020 and 2021. Suzuka has been the home of this Grand Prix. Japan has had several drivers in the world of Formula 1, but a world champion has never emerged from this country. No Japanese driver has ever won an official Formula 1 Grand Prix. But at least the Japanese have been able to delight in seeing their own climb to the podium on their home circuit. Since in 1990, Aguri Suzuki would manage to finish 3rd, and 22 years later, Kamui Kobayashi from Sauber would achieve the same milestone by finishing 3rd in this Japan Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton holds the lap record on this track, setting a time of 1:30.83 in 2019, which is the absolute race record on this circuit. The most winning team in the history of this Grand Prix is McLaren, which has claimed 9 victories. The top podium of historical winners of this Grand Prix: 3rd place Sebastian Vettel with 4 victories, 2nd Lewis Hamilton with 5. And the all-time winner of this Grand Prix is Michael Schumacher, with 6 victories obtained from 1995 to the year 2004. These being the historical data of this Japan Grand Prix and of this Suzuka circuit. With this, we conclude the preview of the 2025 Formula 1 Japan Grand Prix. But this is where I ask you, do you think the switch from Tsunoda to Lawson is the solution for this team? Do you think anyone can challenge McLaren in this Grand Prix? And of course, let me know your top 3 of who you think will be the first 3 drivers to occupy the podium at the end of this Sunday's Japanese Grand Prix. Let me know all your opinions in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up before I say goodbye. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you know when I'm uploading a new video, and share this with your friends. I also invite you to follow us on our Instagram and Twitter accounts linked in the video description. And see you this Sunday for the summary at the end of the Japan Grand Prix. Thank you for tuning in and see you later.